Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take a quick look here at Bitcoin, of course, as we do per usual, and just kind of help identify how the weekend is shaping up. Now, before we get started, not a financial advisor, just love teaching people how to trade. Hopefully you can learn a thing or two here today, hopefully educate you on how to become a better trader. So definitely check out my website, CryptoCache.tech, if you want to become a better trader, to have signals, trading academy, and of course, an amazing community at your back. I really greatly appreciate my community members. Thank you so much for all your support. You are awesome. Now, taking a look here, of course, at Bitcoin. What we're looking at is pretty straightforward. Not much has happened in the last 24 hours, right? We've got this little doji candle forming, and of course, yesterday, effectively just kind of a natural Friday, right? Normal Friday in the sense of the fact that it increased and decreased by a decent amount throughout the day, but kind of just trended between 39.5 and 41,000. So right in that range, it's basically its current range for the moment. Now I'm speculating we're going to probably see some sideways action, almost exactly what we've seen here so far today, over the next 24 to 48 hours until the Asian market opens up tomorrow on Sunday. Which would be mid to late afternoon in the States, right? But regardless of that fact, I do feel like we are due for an upswing, and I'll explain what I mean by that too. I don't mean a significant upswing. We're talking probably 41.5, maybe at the best, but I think we are going to test that key level resistance there because that was a previous support, 41.5. We also have the 50-day SMA working its way down as well. Okay, that can work as a resistance level too. So say we come up to 41,000, get rejected, the price could continue to progress lower. Now, if we take a look, just say at TD sequential, we've got a long ways to go, right? So if you kind of look at this here, there's a good chance we could see literally 6 to 10 more days of bearish continuation. There's no doubt that that's a possibility, right? So we can't, wipe that off the cards here. It's not to say that the price is just going to ramp back up. I think that's less likely. I do think we're going to see a little bit of a bounce first and then the price come down after. That's just kind of just the way that it feels. And the reason why I say it feels that way is just because based on any previous decrease in price, right? Anytime we take a significant hit, and what was this? Almost 10%, right? Yeah, about 9.5% from bottom to top. Anytime we see that type of decrease, there's always this natural correction that occurs, right? So you see this, and the price comes back up, right? Price comes down, and then eventually comes back up. Now, again, pending no world events, I think there's a strong chance we'll see some type of bounce. It may not be significant. I do think it'll be probably pretty subtle. But once again, it's probably more likely to go up a little bit before it goes back down. Once again, this all depends on the market, right? We have some crazy nonsensical news this weekend. We're going to see a decent dip. We're going to have another CME gap on the futures. It happens a lot. But on the same accord, pending no more nonsense, just say things kind of calm down and just go sideways for a little while, then of course we'll be able to see the price recover a little bit. Once again, I don't think we're going to see anything in the upwards of 50,000, 60,000. That's not going to happen in the immediate future. I think that's very unlikely and very naive to consider that. I do think that 46,000 was the most recent high, and that's going to probably be the most recent high for some time. Again, that high in this range here, right, more so right around 44,500, is equivalent to the most recent high previously. So we still haven't technically made higher highs yet. Okay, so again, it got kind of stopped out there. It could continue in this ascending, wedge pattern type of, that is kind of forming. It's still holding true to that, but again, we're getting close to breaking that pattern. And once again, the likelihood of it continuing to the downside is still very high. Okay, so just keep that in your mind. Be cautious, be careful. If you're in a long position right now, just have a tight stop loss. That's what we have right now as a community, and I don't think that it's completely reckless. I do think it's realistic for the price to come up at least a little bit, but I would not be surprised if we see the price reject off of 41.5 or possibly even 42,800, right in that range there. Okay, so that's kind of just where we're at there in that sense. Looking at the 4-hour, we're trending really, really close, pretty much right at the 200-day simple moving average. Like I mentioned before, until it breaks below and stays below for, I would say, maybe even just say a full trading day, then you don't want to consider that to be a resistance. It's getting close, though. I'll be honest. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 4-hour candlesticks below and only 2 above. So ultimately, it is kind of holding as a potential resistance for the moment. So we got to kind of understand that. But once again, 4-hour candlesticks, you want to wait a little bit longer for that to kind of become official, okay? But either way you look at it, we're still under the 50-day simple moving average, and there's a handful of other reasons why this is still considered to be bearish, even though we are low on the RSI. That's the case in point where we can potentially see an inverse, right? In other words, the price could increase. A lot of times when the price comes as low as 70 on the RSI, which you see it happen not super frequent, but when it does, when these types of decreases occur, you can see here the few times that it's happened, the price has recovered quite nicely to come back up to 50 on the RSI, if nothing else, to at least test it. Okay, so I think we are due for a 50 on the RSI. And bear in mind, you can hit 50 on the RSI if the price just goes straight sideways too. It doesn't have to increase. But the likelihood of it increasing a little bit, I think, is higher again. So just to give you some ideas there, what I'm trying to get at is that if you do see the price come up to 41, 42,000, maybe even just say 43,000, try not to get super excited. The likelihood of it continuing higher is much lower than it is to continue to the downside. Okay, so again, just something to be mindful of. I like to play both sides of the field and make sure you understand that right now we're kind of in this little indecisive scenario, because obviously the doji candle from the last 24 hours, we can see that tells us there's an indecision, but there's a tremendous amount of volume accumulating right here at this current price point, and that is helpful in the sense that we likely have a strong buy wall here at 40,000. The price doesn't want to go much lower than that, and that's a good sign. Okay, once again, touching on volume, just to kind of bring this up, there isn't a lot of volume below the current price point between 39.5 and just say 38,000. So is it going to free fall if we lose 39.5? Not necessarily, but the likelihood of it continuing again to the 38,000 range is much higher than it progressing above 43,000, right? Again, we got that key level resistance. Look at this volume here, right at 42K. Tremendous amount of volume in the last, what, how many days is this? This is roughly since the first of the year. Yeah, so January 1st is right over here on the left. That's how much volume we've seen in the last 2 months of trading, or a month and a half of trading. The most amount of volume is right above the current price point at 42,000. So that's going to create a strong resistance, right? Now, there's a reason if you're kind of scratching your head wondering why I took a long signal recently. Well, the main reason why is because, again, I feel like we're going to see a bounce. It's inevitable when you have an RSI under 30. But on the same accord, we got to respect the fact that there's a strong resistance at 42,000, a lot of volume above the current price point. So that's the reason why I had a trailing stop loss moving target one right at 41,000. So as soon as that hits, then we get that trigger for that stop loss so we can still take profit. Okay. Again, different scenarios. Sometimes you want to set multiple targets, of course, but sometimes those extra targets may not be super viable. And in this case, I don't think 43,000, as we kind of continue in this trend, I think 43,000 is becoming less of a possibility. All right. So again, that's just the immediate future. Long term, I still think Bitcoin's going to be just fine. We just kind of got to weather the storm here right now. For lack of better terms, 35 to 46,000 is probably going to be the channel we're going to be in for some time, right? Now, we'll bridge the gap in how low it could go, of course, once we get closer. We need to kind of build more volume, again, at the lower price point. But generally speaking, Bitcoin isn't in dire straits, but it's definitely not looking great. Little consolation, we do have a potential MACD convergence here. And when I say potential, it's going to take a little while to have this come to fruition. It's kind of getting slowed down. But hypothetically, the price comes back up to, 41,000. We could very well see this converge, and then the price could shoot up a little bit. Again, probably not a lot, but a little bit to try to push closer to the resistance in that 42 to 43,000 range. Okay, so that's just kind of ultimately where we're looking at there on the 4 hour. Last thing we want to look at here is just the Ichimoku cloud. We'll call it a day. And just kind of want to note something here, of course, with the cloud, is that if you have a short position, you probably want to have closed that short position because you can see the lagging span just intersect with the price action. Okay. Now, even though the conversion line is still below the baseline, that's based on this overall momentum that we have, you can tell though that we're looking pretty good all in all for the cloud. In other words, I wouldn't say a strong reversal is coming, like I've mentioned before, but we should expect to see a slight shift and maybe a push to the upside to 41 to 41.5. Okay. Also note with TD sequential, we're getting a lot of resets here. We came up to an 8, came back down to a 5, and now we're back at a 1. So ultimately, we probably shouldn't expect tremendous amount of volume this weekend because volume over the weekend just tends to die down. But once again, that does change volatility, and we could see a shift in momentum perhaps soon. And once again, that shift in momentum, I just feel like, with us, the amount of volume we're building here at this foundational point, we're getting a lot of volume between 40 and 39.5. It's building a little bit of a foundation there, that little base, so we can kind of build on and continue to progress upwards. But once again, it's kind of honestly a 50-50 situation. You're almost gambling if you're going to take entry at this point. So I do recommend just in general, probably to, again, if you're going to take a position, dollar cost average. If you're going to take just say a day trade type of position, pay close attention to it. Make sure to use the right indicators and ensure that you're on the right side of the volume profile for one, right? So what I mean by that here is just to kind of touch on, the actual volume weighted average price. You want to be above this blue line if you're going to be considering taking entry. Okay. Now I cover this in my Trading Academy, so if you're not familiar with that, definitely check that out. Of course, that's in the membership section within our website. But once again, this blue line is very important to kind of tell you the average volume right now is at 40,000. The price being below that, currently resistance. The price should probably progress lower unless it can break above and hold above that point. Okay. And we want to have it hold above for no less than 30 minutes, by the way. So if you use the VWAP strategy, you want to make sure you get 30 minutes of confirmation above that level to ensure that you are on the right side of the tracks. Okay, and this is what I use here myself. Personally, I use the EMA 15 and the VWAP, where the price, when it breaks above, you can see we get this signal, basically letting you know that you want to the continuation of it coming up is much higher. Again, the market is kind of crazy right now, so you got to hold these positions for a short amount of times. I would not, try to just take a position and just hold it over the weekend, right? Ultimately not the best idea. Again, unless you have trailing stop losses and multiple profit targets in place like we do in our current trade right now, you want to I recommend exercising caution and just paying close attention as you do, because again, weekends are a little funny. They don't move too much, if that makes any sense, right? So continuation plays are less likely on the weekends. Anyways, just some friendly advice again. The best position sometimes is no position. I might recommend considering taking less less positions at this point until we kind of find our bottom, and I don't think we're there yet, truth be told. Even if we do see a slight increase, I do think we're going to be in for more downside here soon, just based on the way the market's shaping up. It just feels and looks like it's going to continue to digress. All right, so hopefully you found benefit again here today. So sorry it wasn't maybe definitive answer in which way it's going to go, but weekends are kind of like this. I would expect we'll probably see another doji candle today and tomorrow, and we shouldn't expect a lot, or at least not a lot of movement to the upside or downside. We're probably going to get some sideways consolidation. We're overexhausted even still to the downside, so the likelihood of it coming back up, at least in the short term, is very high. I hope you found benefit once more. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you in the next video. Have yourself a great rest of your day.